name's Caitlin. Welcome to my presentation on ecological impacts based on food consumption. My focus area was meat. This was derived primarily from diagram 1.4. So I found that I was emitting 8.4 tons of CO2 emissions per year and utilizing 5.7 global hectares. Of my 5.7 global hectares, I found 2 global hectares were solely dedicated to food. So part of deriving that I would reduce my consumption of meat was highlighting that this was part of the United Nations goals as well, to be responsible in our consumption and production. This encompasses the reduction of greenhouse gases through waste reduction. And in my action plan, I found that if I reduced my consumption, I would look at portion control, which would minimize waste. Food affects climate change in several ways. I'm only going to talk about one primarily today, and that is the intensive environmental effects that food production has. Food production is a key factor of deforestation and environmental destruction that is due to clearing land for agricultural purposes, which leads to a lot of destruction in flora and fauna. Flora and fauna is responsible for being a natural CO2 filter for our Earth's atmosphere. Through our food and agricultural processes, we are emitting CO2 through factory and transport. Without these natural CO2 filters to get that back out of the environment, we are building and building and building, and therefore adding to the acceleration of pollution and climate change. So different products do have different effects on greenhouse gases. As we can see, beef is the key leader in diagram 2.3 for being a greenhouse gas emitter. This can be due to several different factors, including the land required, machinery, food intake, and the amount of transport required for the food processes. A fun fact for you is that cows' burps and farts do actually emit CO2, which a lot of us know. However, what is overlooked is that this generates 15% of global greenhouse gas emissions yearly. So my step towards improvement, week 1, I wanted to focus on reducing my portion sizes of my meals and in turn reducing my waste. Week 2, I was incorporating 1 to 2 vegetarian meals at minimum. Week 3, I wanted to focus on having a primarily vegetarian diet and incorporating my proteins through plant-based alternatives. So my base data. As we can see in my first week's base data, there's meat in nearly every meal. I had a very large consumption of beef and pork products and a high waste due to high portions. In this week that I've recorded here, I consumed 1,780 grams of meat in the 1 week. So my week 1 food log, as we can see here, this is a graph of what I ate for the week in the white graph. In the green graph, we have my measurements again. The only measurement not included in my green graph was the pizza, as obviously it was outsourced to be made, and I wasn't able to measure the amount of which was going into that. So through the progress of this is that I was definitely able to reduce my meat consumption. For this week, I consumed 935 grams of meat, which is down a significant amount. And overall, I only consumed 100 grams of beef, which, as we mentioned in the previous slides, is definitely a higher level of CO2 emissions for that meat product. So my reflection on the impact of this week, I did find that I reduced my meat consumption by 800 grams, which is nearly 8 servings total. And that 800 gram reduction led to a 62.4 kilogram reduction of greenhouse gases emitted from my diet. My week 2 food log again shows what I ate in the week. The goal for this week was to eat primarily vegetarian. As we can see, all of my lunches were vegetarian, as none of my Caesar salads had chicken in them. And I did incorporate 3 vegetarian dinners. my meat table here is definitely smaller than previous weeks. So my progress for the Vegetarian Meal Incorporation, the week's goal was to have at least 1 to 2 meatless meals. That was definitely achieved. And I was able to completely remove beef from my diet in this week. My challenge for that week was definitely still meeting my protein requirements as per the Australian Government Department of Health guidelines, as well as getting my partner on board as he's a big meat eater, and obviously we prepare our dinners together as we live together. My week 3 food log. Here we can see that I did still consume some meats. My goal for this week was to have a primarily vegetarian diet. Unfortunately, as we can see, that was not successful. I did introduce tofu, which was a plant-based, which is a protein alternative to a meat product. That was definitely a positive for me. So my week 3 progress and impact, I was not able to source as much locally as I would have liked due to having a limited amount of shops accessible. I did look into the climatarian diet, which focuses on responsible sourcing of vegetables, meat products, and reducing waste. This is now the ongoing goal for my diet, is to be more aware of what I'm eating and not completely eliminate meat, but definitely limit it to 2 to 3 meals a week as opposed to every day. So my ongoing impacts, we can see that my Earth Overshoot Day has been pushed from the 14th of April to the 22nd of July. I am down from using 3.5 Earths to using 1.8 Earths. My global hectares of land previously was 2 just for food. It is now 2.9 global hectares in total for my ecological footprint. Of this, only 0.6 global hectares is for food. And 4.9 tonnes per year of CO2 emissions, down from 8.4 tonnes. I do thank you for your time today and viewing my presentation. If meat consumption is a challenging factor for your global footprint as well, I do urge you to first try to limit your beef intake, as that is obviously a huge contributing factor. Thank you so much.